want to commend the pre-hospital personnel yesterday for all of their efforts and all the efforts at Broward Health North, Broward Health Main, and also Coral Springs Medical Center got a couple of patients as well. Specifically to Broward Health North, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Menendez and Puente about Broward Health Main. Broward Health North, we had a total of 9 patients. One was the suspect treated and released. We had 2 patients deceased. 3 patients have been discharged. We currently have 3 patients in the hospital. One with an extremity wound who's doing well and working with physical therapy. Another patient who's still intubated after penetrating trauma to the chest, but is doing well and following commands. And a 3rd patient that remains intubated in critical condition. Dr. Menendez.
Yes. Benny Menendez, I'm the director for the emergency department at Broward Health Medical Center. So yesterday was a tragedy that we all as a team took care of all these patients. We, our facility, received 7 patients. Of the 7 patients, right now we have 2 patients that they are critical, stable condition. The other 5 went home or they're on the way home and they're, in good condition. The other 2 that they're critical, stable condition, I have Dr. Puente, who is the trauma surgeon who was dealing with them. So if you have any question about those, you can tell them.
Thank you, Dr. Menendez. I'm Ivan Puente. I'm the trauma medical director at Broward Health Medical Center. And unfortunately, this is becoming routine for us now. It's the second such episode that we've had in a year, which is very sad. And the first thing I want to say is that this second time around, just like the first time around, the first responders did a terrific job. And for those of you who understand what we do in trauma, time is of the essence, and really the delivery of those patients by that EMS personnel was fantastic yesterday, and it made a huge difference in the outcomes. As Dr. Menendez said, we received 7 patients. 1 was discharged last night. We had 1 that was in critical condition that went to surgery. We had 2 more stable patients that also require surgery. We have They're still, out of the 6 still left in the hospital, we're hoping to be able to send home 2 of them today, but I expect that all of them will fully recover. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Special Agent Cruz, can you please tell us, are you prepared to tell us that Nicholas Cruz is the same person who wrote that YouTube comment? Is it the same person? Can you comment more about this YouTube post?
We do not know if it's the same person. We did our database checks. We could not positively identify him. We're going back. We're scrubbing the information. We're looking at it again. But I'm not willing to say this time that it was one and the same person.
Was anyone specifically targeted? Is there any indication that someone was specifically targeted that started all of this?
Not at this time. That's certainly a possibility. But as I said earlier, the FBI, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and Broward Sheriff's Office will be working conjunctively to interview as many people as we can, so down the road we can uncover this information. But at that time, that's just right now it's no more than a possibility.
Do you know how he entered the building, how he got in?
We will speak about that. We do know about that, and at our next press conference, as I said, I will take the media through a timeline and talk about through videotapes. We'll match up video with real-time information with things we know, and we'll disseminate that.
Sheriff, you said you operated out. How do you receive the weapon, flying sheriff? What can you tell us about how Cruz obtained this AR-15?
Glinda, we're not going to release that until later today, if we do at all today. That's something that alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, those investigators are trying to track down the history of this weapon. We believe we know where the weapon was purchased, where the weapon came from, but that's being pieced together. So that will be something that we will discuss when at the appropriate time.
Governor, the airport shooting last year, now this tragic shooting. What can you tell the people of Broward County? What else can we have for their safety?
As I said, I talk about this all the time. It's not a phrase, it's not a term. It's the way we have to live our lives in circa 2018. If we see something, we need to say something. If that neighbor comes home every Friday at 4 o'clock and he or she's always carrying a grocery bag and has milk and eggs sticking out, and the last 2 Fridays they've gone to a different, maybe a range, and they've come back with bullets in the bag on Fridays, that's a change in behavior. That's different. That's something we need to know about. You're our eyes and ears. Well, one community member who sees something could do more in a 1-minute phone call than sometimes law enforcement could do in a period of months. If you know anybody right now, if you know anybody and you're saying, you know what, this raises a red flag, I was thinking of calling us. Don't think about calling us. Call us. Call the FBI. Call the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Call the Broward Sheriff's Office. But if there's something in your gut that tells you there's something not right with this person has the capabilities in my mind to do this or do that, please don't remain silent. Please let us know about it.
Explain why he was expelled or rejected. Classmates of his knew about his problems all the way back to middle school. He had an extensive disciplinary record. Was he on, or maybe for Mr. Runcie, was he on the school district's radar in some sense? What was done about it? Because people have known him for years already, prior to even his expulsion from the high school. How did he get back on campus? And why was he expelled?
You know, as a school district, we have to protect the privacy of our students, so I can't go into much detail at all about the student's record and personal information. I will tell you that it was a former student at Stoneman Douglas. Because of issues that arose here, he was transferred to another school within the county.
Was it a troubled school? What type of school was it?
Again, I'm not privileged to provide that information at the moment, but it is a student that we have been providing supports for and recognize that there certainly were challenges there. The specifics I can't get into. As far as the student coming on campus, this particular individual came on the campus at the time of dismissal, and that is a fairly open time for the campus, and he entered the facility at that moment. So that's.
The district was aware of it as a potential problem, as having a disciplinary record, as having been expelled, as having been enrolled in rehabilitational schools. I mean, the district knew he was out there and that he had caused problems in the past, correct?
So let me just say this: when we have students within our care in the district, we provide the services that we can provide them. This is bigger than just the school system. Our kids are out of our schools 2/3 of the time that they're up. We need a community-wide approach to helping our students with challenges and mental health concerns. And so, again, we've got to invest resources to make sure that we minimize the occurrence of this ever happening again, because if we don't, it's not a matter of if, it's going to be when. So,
Sheriff, do you know if there was a psychological trigger? Was there a psychological trigger with this student for this event?
I have no idea.
Sure, what is the status of the crime scene? And the other staff, where are you guys processing the scene?
There are some bodies that are still in the school. There's a medical. Right now, the focus of the FBI and the Broward Sheriff's Office is on the successful prosecution of this killer, and we're not going to leave any stone unturned. We're trying to process this as quickly as we can, but the ME is involved, investigators are involved, there's science, DNA, and a whole plethora of things. And we want to go fast, but we're not going to rush it. We're going to get it right before we get it fast, and that's what's going on right now.
Does there a real conversation about situations like this?
Do students in the school know who to report concerns to? If they were concerned about a classmate, is there a protocol or a system or something?
You'd have to. I'm sure there is. I mean,
Did he cooperate?
He wasn't enrolled. There is a process. They could get a hold of teachers, guidance counselors, their parents, make anonymous calls to Crime Stoppers. If somebody knows something, there's certainly ample way to say yes.
Governor Scott, is there a way?
Well, we had a school resource deputy, Deputy Peterson. He was on campus and he was armed. He never encountered, at this point, the only thing I can tell you definitively is he never encountered Cruz.
Governor Scott, you said you would have a real conversation about how to prevent something like this from happening. Does that real conversation include gun control? Can you tell Floridians today that's something that you'll look into?
The two things I want to focus on when I have this conversation next week with state leaders is I want to focus on school safety. Now that's going to focus on dollars. It's going to focus, as the superintendent said, on mental health dollars. It's going to focus on what are the things we can do with regard to school safety. But on top of that, we've got to think about this. if somebody's mentally ill, they should not have access to a gun. So I want to focus on both of those things. I've already spoken to the Speaker of the House and the Senate President, and they're receptive to having this conversation about school safety. All of us have children or grandchildren, nieces or nephews. None of us want anything like this to happen again. Let me also say something. I should have said something in Spanish earlier. Mis oraciones están con las víctimas y las familias que afectadas por esta tragedia. Como gobernador es muy importante para mí que todos los estudiantes en la Florida estén seguros.
One question, is it a diagnosis that he was mentally ill? It seems like there's a big focus on mentally ill. Is he mentally ill? Is this a diagnosis, or is this something that we're assuming because he killed so many people, or at least charged with that?
I think it's a pretty good assumption to start out with. Yes.
Governor, thank you. If you sort of forecast for us the conversations you plan to have with lawmakers next week, how will they be different from the conversations you had with them after the last rash incident?
Right. Well, let's remember this. First off, Pulse was a terrorist attack, and after Pulse, I asked for money, and the legislature supported adding more counterterrorism experts through our Florida Department of Law Enforcement. We did that. We, I think, added 46 additional counterterrorism experts. So we did that. In this case, what we have to think about is all of our schools have to be safe. It's as simple as that. How do we do that? It's going to be funding. It's going to be is there both for security, for mental illness, for counselors, things like that. But on top of that, we've got to say to ourselves, if we have somebody that's mentally ill, they can't have access to a gun. So, but look, I'm open to having a conversation about things because I don't want my children, your children, my grandchildren, your grandchildren, ever anything to go through like this. I don't want a parent to have to say, oh, I've got to teach you now when you start kindergarten that you've got to learn how to be careful about a shooter. That's not this society we all want to live in.
Is he cooperating?
I also we have out here today. I'm flanked by many of our school board members, our elected officials on the school board, Dr. Rosalind Osgood, Abby Freeman, Donna Corn, and a host of others. And we appreciate them being out here, and we're going to make sure that they're part of the conversations too, because they deeply care about their students and this community. So I'm glad to see them here today. A few more questions. And then,
what has Cruz said to you at this point?
yeah, we're not going to release anything he said to detectives.
Especially if you talk about it over that hear or see something suspicious to report it.
Right.
If someone came forward to your agency with information about this suspect, what could you legally have done about the fact that he owned a gun?
Well, if he legally owned a gun, we couldn't do anything about arresting him for having a gun because you used the word legally. But we could certainly follow up. We could certainly go to visit him, whether he legally owns a gun or not. If we think a red flag goes up and that there's something not right, and we think that this person has a propensity to do such a horrific act, I think police all over this nation need to be empowered to take that person and medically deliver him to a medical or her to a medical facility where they can be examined. Thank you for your time. We'll be back in about an hour.
In 2017, did you talk to Cruz?
What time?
Is that 1 hour? He said it'd be another update in 1 hour.